let's discuss business with the math and business with the traditional methods. Now, one thing I have to bring to your attention is that whether in a radio advertisement, TV advertisement, or newspaper advertisement, or whatever advertisement, you never hear a company, an English teaching company, advertising, talking about their curriculum. What does that mean? Well, to cut it short, traditional methods, whichever you pick, is not going to be different from any other, essentially. Why? What is a method? You see, a thought is a three-dimensional thing: causality, time, and space. In this we locate events, and then this is the structure of a sentence in every language. And whatever variations are possible in the language are always centered around the expression of these three things. And the Western world somehow invented grammar in an attempt to explain a language. Of course, grammar cannot explain the language. Grammar cannot explain why a chair is feminine, a door is masculine, and why you have to put the adjectives in plural, whereas already the nouns are in plural. So it doesn't explain anything about the why, it only explains how the language is done. But can't you just see from the language itself? So, when an academic who is about to produce a curriculum is mistakenly believing in grammar and thinks that grammar is the science of the language somehow, will always center his curriculum around grammar, and grammar is basically the explanation of this causality, time and space, and whatever is around is how to be arranged. So whenever you make a curriculum that deals with a sentence, you can only produce a method. Because for producing a system, a language teaching system, you also need the three other levels of a set of a language. And then, with the limitations of these two, you can make a system. But in the absence of knowing how language is created and how it is structured, the only way to come up with something new is to create a new method. Now, it does not matter if method A teaches a special sequence of the parts of the language and method B teaches a different sequence of the parts of the language, and method C teaches the whole language more with practical applications, and then method D teaches from the grammarian point of view. All this does not matter, because essentially all of them are the same. And the highest good of a method that people can state is that it was developed by a professor in this and that university, the most prestigious in the world, or in England, or in America, or these kinds of things. But they cannot talk hours and hours about the curriculum that they create. Now, that produces an environment where we have a lot of methods that are no different from one another. And that sets the stage for what follows. On the other hand, M.E.S has an environment where it is different from all the rest. And M.E.S is not answerable to any academic agenda or any similarities or any commitment to whatever was there before in the field of language teaching. So M.E.S stands apart from all the rest. And that is why I can talk a lot about M.E.S. I can talk some about the methods also, but the representative of any method cannot say much that the other method cannot claim. So, when in the private sector, let's talk about the private sector, the public schools, we leave it out now, but private businesses. In the private sector, not being different from any other fundamentally sets the stage for something very undesirable. And also being different from all the rest sets the stage for something very, very desirable that I will explain in the end. Now, when you have many businesses competing for the same, then and you are essentially no different from them, then you can only market a business model. And in fact, a business model is absolutely necessary for that company to stay in business and keep teaching the language. Without the business model, it will just go bankrupt. Business models are many, and they all aim at profits. And they all serve mainly the business owners, and then partly the people working in the business, and then last, the students. So to set up a business model, what is absolutely important, absolutely paramount to know when you set up a business? You have to know the right balance between different aspects. So definitely you have to keep the students believing that they're progressing. You have to impart that much of knowledge, that much of English. And you have to have the teachers who can enforce this belief in the students, because they have the right attitude for this, the right teaching methods and all this. And then you have to balance your expenses, your gains, and your services, whether you give drinking water or lunch or what. You have to make a balance, and it's very, very fragile. It's very fragile, and it is this business model that in this way I talk about the market, because it's just a business, and in such a venture the students can be referred to as the market. So the market will essentially decide on whatever you provide, whether they will join your franchise or I mean your school or another franchise. And why is it so? Basically because none of the methods can deliver what the students want. And then so the students believe that it cannot be that all of them are wrong somehow, and so the market has this false belief that something is not right with us. We are not made for this. And now the students will start thinking like that. Or the most frequent, English is very hard, very difficult. It's not so. But so essentially, Every student has more or less the same objective when he or she decides to learn English. And that objective is that he wants to be an English speaker someday. His objective is not to read English books or to understand English songs. We always want more than that. We want to use the language. And the rock bottom of language level and the highest level is the same. And that is why when we meet a foreigner, we ask, can you speak English? Because the rock bottom is that you have to know how to speak. And the highest skill of possessing a language is also speaking. But not basic, but good language, higher level language. But it's speaking, because in speaking, your mind has to work very fast. In writing, you can compose, erase, replace, whatever you want to do. So, writing an essay is never as difficult as spontaneous speaking of the same quality. Yeah. So, the market knows that these methods are the only ways. So basically sees no difference from this model to that model, or this business to that business. And they mainly decide on how many students are attending your school already. Because, oh, that must be a good school. So many students go there. That's how they decide first. And then they go for consultation, and then they want to find out about your business model. But they don't know that this is what they're contemplating. They think that they're contemplating the prospects of learning English. But no, they're deciding, they're checking out your interior, you know, how pretty your teachers are, how handsome, how young, how much they smile. And then also check out the location, how close it is to their houses, and how convenient it is for them to go there. And all this they check out, and then based on that they will decide whether they join your courses or not. So, for making them say yes and sign in, you need a business model that can guarantee that. And when you stand apart from all the rest, then you can put aside business. Because here, after this, it will be always business that rules. Here, the M.E.S is nothing but an education model. And that's what a M.E.S company will sell. An education model. And education is precisely why the students come to the class. It's not a business. They don't care about your business. They care about education, how you teach them and how much language they take home at the end of the day. But because a reliable way has not been invented before the M.E.S, the market believes that they are all the same. And if they have to go anywhere and they have to go into one, then they might as well just check out the best one that gives the best services. And somehow, unconsciously, they select a school not based on how well the school will teach him or her, them, will teach them. Okay, so for you to have a business model that functions, you always have to satisfy the people who pay for it. And that means that teaching is done at the expectations and the levels of the market. And if you want to give them too much, they run away. It's too hard for them. If you don't give them enough, the balance tilts and they run away from you because they pay for nothing, they're not getting what they want. So in this way, a business model is dependent on the whims and expectations of the market. And that's okay. That's okay when it comes to trading, because that means satisfaction. But in language education, when the market does not know what the market wants, because the market decides on the business model and not on education, it is very dangerous to be led by the market, because the market wants, I can only speak for Korea, here the market wants certificates, the market wants the possibility to show off how much their children, how much money they pay for the children's English education, what a good school is going to, and so on and so on. And basically, they don't want any real value. They would like, but they don't know. So they pay for all this. And if a business model is led by this kind of people, then I'm very sorry for those students who join this kind of school. On the other hand, when it is an education model that you market, then it is the teachers that lead the class. It is the student that tries to come up to the standard set by the teacher, and it is not the teacher that goes down to the standard set by the students. Frictions between teachers and the management is constant, because many of the teachers, maybe most of them, mean education because that's their job and they believe in that. But the management of the business knows very well that what they are doing is not about education. They have to maintain that fragile balance that guarantees that the paychecks will keep coming every month to the school. So here there is no friction. The curriculum is set. In fact, it is so well done that even a person can do it on his own at home or on the phone or anything. So since the management and the teachers, they both mean education, they have only differences in opinion about minor things. And then, of course, when the market leads the business model, the result is slow. Because picking up the language fast means hard work, very intensive work. Market doesn't want to go through all that suffering, right? So the market will lead the businesses on in a slow march. When the result is very slow, then the businesses profit from the ignorance of the market, because the slower the student learns, the more money he will spend on English classes. And it's good for the businesses who promise to sell you the knowledge of the English language. But on the other hand, it's very opposite with the M.E.S, because instead of a slow result, daily satisfaction is the characteristic of the M.E.S class. Why? Because it's made in a way that you rely on your own ability from day one. And whenever you get something done, you have the feeling of success, because you don't copy sentences, you don't read things to understand, you actually produce what you want to understand. And because you are taught how to do it, satisfaction is a daily occurrence with the mathematical English class. Now, if the result is slow, it's good for the businesses, but that also prevents from any of the methods to rule the English education industry. That means now this industry is very much divided amongst schools and big franchise companies in Korea, Japan, and maybe other parts of the world as well. But for Korea, surely I can speak. So, none of the franchises stand apart from the others, and therefore none of the franchises rule the industry. And they are just one player on the field, and probably that's okay with them because they still make a pretty penny, considering that they have a successful business model. On the other hand, if we consider all that the M.E.S can deliver, we have to conclude that if this system gets implemented nationwide in a very short time, it shall rule the industry or take over the industry. And it only depends on how fast the institution is able to handle this takeover. Now, here comes the pre-conclusion of the whole thing. There are many methods with many franchises, many business models, and basically we produce the same result to a different degree, but same in kind. In Korea, it's not something that the schools can proudly boast with, because most of the Korean students who get English certificates can't speak the language. They can read and write, perhaps they can answer questions, but they cannot put the language together. They can't reproduce the language to handle situations with it. So you have many franchises, many business models, and that results in an area where teaching English is very, very competitive. So it's not a walk in the park, right? On the other hand, again, the mathematical English system is above competition by its nature. None of the models can compete with it, and even if you combine all of them together, they cannot compete with it in terms of academic success and in terms of delivery of the knowledge of the English language, or even in terms of keeping promises. Methods promise you that you will learn English, and perhaps it is so, but half of the time, or nearly half of the time, it does not happen. So the promise is not delivered, not kept. And then, so if we have one system that produces exactly what the students want in the class, and is so distinctly different from all the others that it's above competition, then we have to accept that all the methods now operating belong to the present. I don't want to say future because I can't predict the future. I don't want to say past because I have to wait until we get there. But these are the thing of the present. Now they still alive, they still operate. The design, the M.E.S had the chance to design the future in English teaching. And here I want to remind you of something that you may not realize. Human history is marked with different eras, and eras have a start and an end. And after the Industrial Revolution, eras very often, or most often, started and will start with inventions. Let's see. Once upon a time, every city had horse shit on the road because they were using horses, and then came the era of the cars, the fuel engine. Now we don't have that. Now everybody uses cars, but we cannot return back to the time of the horses. Of course, I like horses, and I wish we used more horses than engines, but that's not the wish of the collective consciousness. Then again, computers. We are in the information age now, and that started by the invention of the microchip, maybe before the invention of the computer system, and we don't want to let it go. We don't want to go back to the good old time of writing letters and sending them by the post. And nearly in about every field of endeavor, our endeavors are kind of marked by these errors. Nearly in everything, whatever we have improved, we had certain errors that we went through, and a new era always started by something fundamentally different and way more promising than what it was done before. And with this idea, I want to end this. If the M.E.S has a way or a chance to design the future, then perhaps it will start a new era from where we will have no return.